special edition of Eye on Northwest Politics, Oregon's governor at a time of adversity and challenges. On Portland's education cuts.
Certainly I'm worried about Portland.
On Trump-imposed tariffs.
I fully support the Attorney General, who is filing legal action to stop the tariffs.
And on Oregon's shortage of public defenders.
Well, we have a public defense crisis in the state.
I sit down with Governor Tina Kotek at the state capitol in Salem for an insightful half-hour exclusive interview. Eye on Northwest Politics starts now. Welcome to Eye on Northwest Politics. I'm Ken Boddy. For the next half hour, my exclusive interview with Oregon Governor Tina Kotek. Elected governor in 2022 after 9 years as the state's longest-serving House Speaker, Tina Kotek is one of two openly lesbian governors in America. We talk everything from how President Trump's tariffs and executive orders affect Oregon to her agenda on homelessness and education in the legislature. Our interview is at her ceremonial office in Salem near the Capitol building, which is still undergoing renovations. Governor Kotek, thanks for being on Eye on Northwest Politics and inviting us here to Salem.
Thank you for having me. Always good to see you, Ken.
When do you actually get to move into your real offices at the state capitol? It's still under renovation.
What we're hearing is Capitol will be completely ready to go by the fall, so we're looking forward to being back in the middle of the building.
One of your priorities for this legislative session was education.
Yes.
And we're just hearing that there's going to be a shortfall at Portland Public Schools of $40 million that could cut more than 200 jobs. What are your thoughts about whether there should be more state support for education, especially looking at Portland Public Schools and what they're going through?
Well, I'm really glad you're starting with education because that's been a priority since I came into office. If you remember my very first year, it was focused on new resources for literacy to make sure every child in the state can be reading at grade level, particularly by third grade. And we were successful 2 years ago in getting that passed. I am fighting for more money in literacy. Those types of targeted investments are going to improve outcomes for our students. Now, for individual districts, certainly I'm worried about Portland. Largest school district, they are struggling with their finances. My understanding it has to do with decreased enrollment, so they're having to adjust their budget. What I'm fighting for in this legislative session is the strongest possible state school fund for all of our districts. In fact, it's not just more money, it's more predictable money. I worked all of last year to say, what does it really take to provide more predictable funding for our districts? So my number in my budget, where there is strong support from legislative leaders, is a significant state school fund number, $11.4 billion. I don't know if that will meet all of Portland's needs. They're going to have to make some choices. But we, I think, are still in a readjustment from the pandemic. We've seen families move. We've seen enrollments go down in some places and enrollments go up in other places. And so there will have to be adjustments at Portland, it sounds like.
Staying with education, earlier this month, you ordered the State Department of Education to hold the line on its DEI policies, despite the federal threat of losing federal funding. You're up against a deadline by the Trump administration now to prove compliance with eliminating DEI in education. Are you still holding the line on DEI at higher education institutions in Oregon?
I am. I think it's really important as Oregonians to stand up for what we believe in. And one of the values we have in our school system is to make sure every child feels supportive, safe, welcomed into the classroom. That's how we're going to affect getting kids in the seats and dealing with our absentee issues. That is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We're committed to that here in the state. So what we were hearing from the Trump administration is, you need to tell us if you're following the law. Well, what I supported my director of Department of Education to do was, let's tell the Trump administration that we are following the law. We are not discriminating against anyone. We're providing schools that include everyone, and that we don't need each school district to certify that. We'll send one letter. We're not breaking the law. We're going to follow what we believe here in the state of Oregon, and we're going to just keep going forward, because that is what is in the best interest of our students.
Do you think that will fly with the administration?
Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, a lot of states have taken a similar tact. I believe we are within the law of what we are doing. I certainly respect the executive orders of the president, and I want to make sure they match with what we're doing here in Oregon. I believe whatever we do in our schools is lawful, and if so, we'll need to see what the court says.
If they decide that that's not adequate, how much federal funding is at stake, and are we prepared to deal with that loss?
Well, I think what we're seeing with the Trump administration is many funding streams, many federal programs that we pay for as Oregonians. Those are our tax dollars going to DC. Many of those are under threat right now, including education. He's looking to terminate the Department of Education. That will have impacts. We have low-income schools that benefit from Title I funding. There's a whole lot of things that each state depends on from the federal government to help us have the best schools possible. So I don't know what that number would be, but here's been my approach. I'll listen to what the president is saying. I will look at what he's asking for. I will evaluate that in terms of what we believe we're doing here in the state that is lawful and respond accordingly. I would hope that he does not cut off any funding. And many states are going to be in trouble, not only Oregon, if he decides to cut off funding based on his executive order.
Port of Portland decided just recently to revoke their DEI policies because they're worried about losing federal funding. They're a federal contractor. What did you think about that?
Well, that's a tough spot to be in. The Port of Portland, as you pointed out, is a contractor. When you are under contract with the federal government to do something, in this case, do some of the dredging for the port, you do need to follow that. So I think a contractual relationship is different. And so the port has said we're going to have to do what they're asking us to do to continue to have our money. What I have been assured by the leadership at the Port of Portland is that they're going to continue to protect their employees, support equity, support a workplace that is inclusive, and work with the broader community to support all communities to be successful. So even if they don't have a policy specifically, I know where their hearts are and where their values are, and I think they'll be fine.
Did you agree with them revoking their DEI initiatives?
I don't think they had much choice. As a contractor, I think that's a little different than as a recipient of federal money, like we are talking about the executive orders. When you're a contractor, and the person who gives you the contract says you need to do something, you're in a much different situation. And that was a tough choice for them.
You've met with Oregon business leaders on the effects of the Trump tariffs as well. You're collaborating with Business Oregon for a survey on how those tariffs are already affecting trade issues in the state. Are there specific industries that you're most concerned about, and what can we do about it in terms of battling the tariffs as they affect Oregon businesses?
It's a really good question. I'm very frustrated by the tariffs, and just to remind people, these are additional taxes that the president is unilaterally applying to goods that come into the country and goods that leave the country. Oregon, being on the West Coast, makes us very involved in world trade. We make a lot of things here, and we sell things to lots of places. We heard from Bob's Red Mill that they sell their products to 65 countries. They get materials into the country, things that help make their products, from 30 different countries. We believe in trade. We think it's been good for the state of Oregon. That roundtable with business owners, I think who are most impacted, small and mid-sized businesses. They don't have the ability to respond, say, a larger business might. Agriculture, food processing, types of industries that have very low margins are going to be significantly impacted. The apparel industry, we heard from Wildfang talking about what it takes to make their products, and by a stroke of luck, they missed a very large tax payment by 2 days because their stuff arrived before the tariffs went into place. Here's what we're doing. We're gathering the information. We're trying to figure out if there is something we can do locally to help some of these small and mid-sized businesses get over the initial hump. I don't know if we can, but we're getting information now. I fully support the Attorney General, who is filing legal action to stop the tariffs based on the impact, and he's being joined by other states to do that as well. So we'll be hearing more about that. We have to put up all the information to say this is bad, not only for our state, but for the country. These tariffs are going to have significant damage on the economy.
You mentioned Attorney General Dan Rayfield. He's filed or joined in more than a dozen lawsuits against the Trump administration over the president's executive orders. Overall, how much coordination or cooperation is there between your office and Dan Rayfield's office in battling the effects of the Trump executive orders and tariffs?
Well, one of the things I did after the inauguration, or after the election, at the end of last year, was to have a meeting with the Attorney General, Secretary of State, our state treasurer, our Senate president and Speaker of the House and the legislature, and make sure we all understand what's at stake for Oregon. There's been good cooperation. Everybody's an independently elected leader, but we try to keep each other apprised of what's going on. And when we see a problem, we let the Attorney General know, like, hey, we might have to look into this. And he's, talking with Attorney Generals around the country. There's a lot of conversation of this moment in our nation's history, in our state's history. We need to be united in saying, hey, let Oregon be Oregon. These things aren't good for Oregonians, and we're going to tell you, and if we have to, we'll go to court.